Hey everybody, it's the Unstoppable Egg, live. Well, not live, this is probably recorded like 2.5 weeks ago. It's probably funnier to me than it is to you. But anyway, here we are. Isaac, AGRL, J3, QP. Wow, a speed upgrade, who would have thought? I gotta tell you, we've been having some, I don't want to call them bad runs, because I don't think that's true. But they've started pretty slow in a lot of those cases recently, and we've survived but by the grace of Edmund. Excuse me, sir. I choose not to be at less than full health right now because Maggie doesn't have to make a choice with respect to that. This is a luck up, guaranteed. Luck up and waiting. So honestly, okay, it's not really good on the damage department. To get Brother Bobby right off the bat, or as Dan calls him, Brother Bobby, is not really that bad. It's not a, I mean, you don't need me to tell you. It's probably like putting, premium gasoline in your car. Does it actually make any difference? I have no idea. But it might make you feel better. The placebo effect might be there. I don't know. I'm assuming if you don't drive a Ford Focus, if you drive something a little schmancier, you might require premium gasoline. I don't know though. I don't think I've ever been in a vehicle and purchased gas. Like been in a friend's car and have them be like, you got to put premium in this thing. Diesel, yeah, that's a big one. If you got a diesel vehicle and you put unleaded, petroleum into it, you're gonna have issues, and vice versa. You can't just, diesel is not just like, discount gas. I don't even think it's at a discount anymore. Might even be more expensive. But premium gas, you know what? This is where you go to the old Google. Does premium gas do anything? No matter what you've heard, premium gasoline won't do more to clean deposits from your fuel injectors. The main difference is its octane rating. What does that mean? If your car... Oh, here you go. In most cases, using a higher octane gasoline than your owner's manual recommends provides absolutely no benefits whatsoever. Okay. So if your owner's manual suggests using premium gasoline, you should use premium gasoline. Otherwise, there's no reason to. Fair enough. I mean, I don't have really anywhere to go with that. There's no place to dunk. I would love to dunk and be like, well, that's what you get for buying a Mercedes, but dude, my car sucks. I mean, it's new. It doesn't suck like it's gonna explode anymore because we had the repair issue that the national recall took place over. But let me put it this way. For the money you spend on a Ford Focus, you could get a very similarly priced but much better car produced by, Honda, Toyota, probably Hyundai, Kia, definitely Mazda. And I mean, I don't know, to be honest with you, the 2015 Ford Focus might be the worst in class. At its price point, at least. I'm sure, if you want to buy a 1992 Honda Civic, the most stolen car in Earth's history, then, maybe that would be worse. But relative to its price point, the value to weight ratio on this in a Fallout context is very low. But this doesn't have to be another car episode, okay? Suffice it to say, it's gonna be. We took our car into the dealership because there was a national safety alert issued about it. So good. So we took it in, and I've been complaining about the fact that the transmission in our car shudders non-stop when you drive it. Well, not non-stop, but particularly stop and start traffic at low acceleration and speed, which is, I live in a city, so 99% of our driving. I took it, I dropped it off, I picked it up, and it drove smooth as butter. I was like, this is amazing. They finally fixed it. I'm still angry that we've been driving it for 4 or 5 years with this problem, and I think the Ford Motor Corporation, got extremely lucky in its class action lawsuit that they only have to pay people $60 a pop for these busted transmissions. And then, like, you know, I was coming to terms with the fact that maybe I'd been a little too hard on this, you know, multi-billion-dollar company that had a huge head start in the automotive industry when my grandfather was like 2.5 years old and still somehow squandered it. And then, like, the next time I turned on the car, it was like, and I was like, oh, old friend, hello, welcome back. I don't know, it fixed it for a brief moment, and then it has regressed now. Honestly, I think we should peep the shop here. It's very important to me we protect our deal with the devil interest by doing that, for example. And don't shoot the messenger. Stopwatch is obviously extremely good. Just trying to get a balanced approach financially and bomb related here. Wouldn't mind starter deck. Why didn't I buy a key, brother? Please, I would like a key. That's my mistake. There we go. All right. Forgot what I was talking about. Basically, oh, it's so good. It is what it is. You know, my Ford dealership sent me a survey that's like... I feel bad for my Ford dealership because they wrote in the survey, like, our business relies on your user reviews. So if you had a good experience... please give 5 stars. If you had a below 5-star experience, please call us to talk about it before you leave a review. And I'm like, dude, I feel you. Don't get me wrong. But, like, how sad is it that you're, like, you know, one of the largest, I don't know, 500 companies on Earth minimum. And you have to, like, beg like that. Without being too rude, I'm like, you know... If we have like well, we don't really have Uber or Lyft in Vancouver yet, but it's supposedly coming. If you have like an Uber or a Lyft driver, unless we get into an accident and die or they try to kidnap us, I'm going to give them 5 stars because it's the gig economy. And, you know, I'm not out to torpedo somebody's, you know, side hustle / the way that they pay for their, you know, necessary life items. Just because, like, oh, well, the radio was slightly too loud, you know? I'm not one of those guys. You know, we've had DoorDash delivered. If the food sucks, I give the driver 5 stars. I give the food a little bit less than 5 stars, but usually I still give it 5 stars. So I'm like, well, if I didn't want bad food, I shouldn't order from this restaurant. But when you're like, people are buying automobiles. They're taking out like loans to purchase your product, and you're like, you have to beg for good reviews and try to like suppress bad ones. You're at the Ford Motor Corporation. That's like, I don't know, I just don't get it. I think, you know, I'm not saying you should deliberately give them bad reviews unless you had a bad experience. But the idea that, like, you know, they're so beholden to the whims of the same kind of factors that apply to the gig economy. I'm like, you know, I'm sorry. Our local Ford dealership seems pretty on the up and up. I've never really had a bad experience with our local Ford dealership. The parent corporation is pretty... I mean, they made a pretty bad product that we happen to spend a decent chunk of change on. So, you know, you'll forgive me, that puts me in a difficult spot here, Ford. On the one hand, I guess what I'm trying to say after all of this is you don't get to put out the same sort of, you know, wishy-washy, hand-wringing, please support your local business rhetoric when you're also backed by one of the largest forces in the automotive industry, which is one of the largest industries on planet Earth. You know what I mean? Like when a local bookstore is like, you know, they'll post something like, if you enjoy our store and you hang out in our store, please consider purchasing your products from here instead of going to Amazon. We understand that sometimes Amazon offers cheaper prices that we can't possibly compete with, but at the same time, if you appreciate having this space in your community, consider paying a little extra in order to support us. It would help out a great deal. That, I'm like, I get it. And I support that. But when you're like, you know, you are Amazon, and you're like, if you enjoyed this product, please leave it a 5-star review. We rely on the support from customers like you to If you have any complaints, please call us, blah, blah, blah. Well, I haven't called our local Ford dealership, but I have troll tweeted Ford Motor Corporation many times, and they have... I refuse to give them an out. Maybe that's my problem. I don't want a reconciliation, but when I would tweet them stuff like, hey, my car sucks, do you have a response? They would be like, well, we're sorry to hear about your experience. Could you please follow us so that we can DM you? And I'm just like, I'm just going to ghost you. I don't want a $350 gift certificate to get new floor mats, okay? You had your chance. You blew it. See you never. I think we should, because there's a reroll machine in the shop, which means we should be able to get a ton of spirit hearts, but it is spiced. There's no doubt about the spice coefficient. Let's even buy them before we do anything else here. Suffice it to say, I am happy. It sucks to leave the compass, but HP is probably more important, right? If we can get it. Now we left the compass for nothing. Suffice it to say, I'm happy to support you like a local business if you treat me like a local business. If you treat me like, you know, my dollars don't matter to you, then... this is very okay, Boomer, but... So, you know, the Boomers, they're wrong about a lot of stuff, but they're not wrong in this one case, you know, specifically of, you know, if a company is treating you with disrespect, you should respond in kind. That's my thoughts on that subject anyway. Again, if you have a Ford vehicle and you have had good experiences with it, honestly, I could not be happier for you. I'm stoked. I'm happy that you're happy, you know? I don't want anybody out there to... You know, I don't want to be the guy who's like, man, I hope everybody has a terrible experience just like me, you know? I would rather everybody get elevated instead of diminished. But there are dozens of us. Yikes. Can you just ease up on the nightmare sounds here? Anyway, how's my day going? It's actually going really well. You might not expect it from the fact that we started with such a boomer-driven... consumer rants. But it's the honest to goodness truth. I bet it's been a good day. Got a good, very, very hard workout in. And honestly, like with all the moving stuff, workout capacity's been a little diminished. To have one today where I was like, I feel strong, but the workout wasn't easy. It was hard, but it was like good hard. I was like, it's good for morale, you know? Hold on. We have one red heart and half of a spirit heart. You know, you leave me in a difficult spot here. Then I, you know, did some stuff in the new place, you know, getting light fixtures installed, missing deliveries, and then having to drive halfway across town to pick some stuff up. And here we are recording Isaac before the NLSS. Feels good. Daylight savings was this weekend. I think in the last episode I talked about how, you know... At my age. Please, sir, open up. This is the police. At my age, daylight savings is, I mean, falling back is less like, oh, sweet, an extra hour of sleep. And more like, why am I so tired already? It's been like 11 p.m. rolled around yesterday, and I was like, I'm dead, dude. I was like, why am I dead? Oh, because it's midnight already. But you know what I did? I realized that it is still an extra hour of sleep. It's just if you're, you know, if you're a little bit more of an early riser, not a particularly early riser, but if you're not a late sleeper, let's call it that way. You do get the extra hour of sleep, but you get it the night after. Instead of being able to sleep in for an extra hour, you go to bed, you know, 1 hour early, but it feels like it's later. And I gotta be honest, that sounds super lame when you're like 17 years old. You're like, oh, I can go to bed 1 extra hour early? Wow, poggers, dude. Not poggers. Extremely haha. Oh, I'm adding this to my cringe collection. But I never thought I would be this guy. But, you know, when I would hear adults when I was not an adult, be like, oh man, I went to bed 1 hour earlier last night and it ruled. I looked at them like they were my boomers. They were boomers to me. Now, God, I hate these guys. I'm like, you know what? They were right. It ruled pretty hard. I cannot muster a single positive for springing forward, though. But again, for the 500th time, supposedly this is the last year that we're going to have daylight savings in British Columbia. And it seems like much of the western United States, at least the coast, is coming with us. Or we're coming with them, I guess. I don't know who's driving it, but I'm okay with, and I don't mind that. I'm okay with being out of sync with the rest of Canada. As long as we still got Washington State, Oregon, and preferably California as well. If we can be in sync with them, I would take it that way. Culturally speaking, I mean, British Columbia is a little weird. I don't mean weird like, oh, wow, it's crazy. They drink kombucha. Whoa. Insane. Hold on, let me hydrate before this bit. But here, I'll give you a little Canadiana lesson. And this will be applicable for those of you who are not from British Columbia or have never been to British Columbia. And I'll present it from an Ontarian perspective as well. British Columbia is very culturally disparate from the rest of Canada. And by the rest of Canada, I don't mean the homogenized Canadian identity. I mean, you know, I think provincially, it's fairly unique. It's probably most, well, let me put it this way. There's basically like a few different parts of British Columbia. Most people think, when they think of British Columbia, they think of $25 cold brew coffees, you know, tall glass towers, money laundering, and Lamborghinis, and, you know, hippies. That's Vancouver and Vancouver Island, which has, you know, 85% of the population of the province, I think. But it's not the whole province. That's what you're describing is the identity of the two major cities in the province. The rest of the province, outside of Vancouver, you know, as you get closer to Alberta, the BC-Alberta border, it gets a little bit more, you know, prairie culture. Ooh, heck yeah, bud. You know what I'm not hating on him. I grew up small town Ontario. It's also extremely K-Kona culture out there as well. So British Columbia, the lower mainland, which is, you know, what Vancouver basically is called when you want to sound cooler than just saying Vancouver. Because it's okay, I'm not trying to insult Surrey or, you know, Richmond or Burnaby or Port Coquitlam or Coquitlam proper. But I am trying to insult North Vancouver. Y'all really don't want the bus lanes in there? You're worried about street parking? Maybe you should have thought of that before you built your house on top of a mountain. Anyway. Sorry. I get very riled up over public policy sometimes. I would say that the lower mainland, from a culture standpoint, is closest to Pacific Northwest American culture. Oregon, I mean particularly Portland and Seattle, but also, you know, the Bay Area and a little bit Los Angeles, but Los Angeles, you know, it has its own unique cultural identity, which is very different. Or, you know, it's disparate from itself is what I mean. You know, you got many different parts of Los Angeles is what I'm trying to say. Ontario, people always assume that Ontarians are like smug and they believe that, you know, they're the only province in the country that matters. Which is partly true. People in Ontario do believe that they are potentially the most important province in Canada. But so do people in British Columbia. And so do people in Quebec. And so do people in Alberta. Don't deny it. I've lived here my whole life. You know it to be true. I don't think I even want to take it, but I feel bad because we're getting all these great deal with the devil chances, but we just, you know, it's a little spicy to take them. But Ontario is, I mean, maybe I can't speak much for the Maritimes or the Prairies or the territories. But I feel like basically in Canada there's like the most divergent cultural line is just urban versus rural, which is probably true in America as well, I would imagine. For the most part, at least. You know, like as a Vancouverite, I feel like when I talk to people that live in, you know, Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, etc., Victoria, Edmonton, maybe less Calgary, but we don't need to get into that. I feel like we've got some kind of shared cultural norms, you know? And then when I grew up, and I grew up in a town of like, you know, under 1,000 people. 2 of diamonds? Wow, we could get 4 cents. Thanks for the 5 cents. You know, it's... They relate, you know, less to the... They see the people that live... Sometimes, at least. They see the people that live in the, you know, the big urban centers as being, like, you know, less Canadian than themselves. You know, if you live in Charlotte Lake, you're more likely to relate to the people who live in Verona than the people who live in Vancouver. Sorry, I was trying to find an alliteration, but it took me way too long to find a Canadian city name that starts with a V. Yes, see, I understand the irony. Anyway, I don't know where I'm going with this. Just food for thought. How did I get here from discussing how I spent the start of my day? I don't have an answer to that question. I appreciate this Isaac run, though. Like, today, I'll probably only be able to eke out a single measly Isaac run. And this one's giving me a little bit of everything. It's giving me, you know, decent damage and survivability. Lots of choice, like the deals with the devil. We probably got to be operating on, like, the odds of getting as many deals with the devil as we've gotten have to be, like, in the, I don't know, like, the sub 3%. I know I'm feeling sub 3, because we definitely got 2 deals on 33% chance. So that's, you know, that's 1 in 9, which puts you at, like, 11%. I don't know, you got to do, like, a Riemann sum or something like that. It's been a while. Okay, we did not get a deal with the devil here, nor did we get access to the boss rush, which was my principal goal. It's okay, we get up to 56 cents here. We gotta be very careful with what we buy. That's a big one, and I think we should buy a spirit heart whenever possible. Nothing here is that relevant. Nothing here is that relevant. It is, I mean, more spirit hearts, I guess. And to be honest, buying a bomb is smart if you think that we're going to spend more than 3 cents on a reroll, which is fairly likely, to be honest. And this is our final at-bat here. Let's grab... I mean, I don't actually think King Baby is any good at all, but it is existing, so we'll grab it. And then we'll go look for our item room. It was weird. Was it our baby that froze them? I don't know, we might have a cool baby. What makes a cool baby? I think it's simple. You might think it's a complicated question. I disagree with the central premise. I do not think it's a tough question. Cool baby, doesn't cry. Makes cute noises. First word is either mama or dada. You don't have to nail all these to be a cute baby. But basically, an uncool baby cries all the time. It's not the baby's fault it's uncool. I'm just saying. Cool baby is like, wham. And you're like, what's up? Are you hungry? And the baby's like, duh. Why else would I be crying, dummy? You give it a little... And the baby's like, all right, I'm going to go take a nap now. That's a cool baby. I'm sure I've told you many times, but, you know, there's many sliding doors moments in my life. One of those moments is when I signed a lease to live with one of my best friends growing up and his girlfriend. And then, like, the day after we signed the lease, he was like, by the way, she's pregnant. Is that a problem? And I was like, I'm sparing you the other details because I know I've told this recently. But I was like, yeah, that's a problem. And he's like, it shouldn't be a problem. I know you work in a career where, you know, having like a noise-free environment is very important to you. And like also beyond that, I understand that as like a 22 or 23-year-old, you might not want to live with the inconveniences of a baby when it's not even your baby. But here's the thing, dude. Growing up, I was a cool baby, and I almost never cried. So our baby is probably going to be pretty cool, too. So I think you should... And then, like, no. That basically, suffice it to say, I ended up going to the landlord, and she was unhappy because we had already paid our security deposit. And I want to be clear, her unhappiness was very valid. You know, she had taken us through this whole apartment, like a couple of times, and then, you know, done the necessary paperwork, we signed the lease, etc., etc. And then I called her and was like, hey, we got a real freaking problem, you know. I want to go back on the lease because, you know, my friend just told me he's having a baby, and I don't think I should have to live with a baby. And when I was talking to her, she's like, you know, this is really inconvenient for me, just so you know. And I was like, yeah, lady. I am sympathetic, believe me. It's pretty inconvenient for me as well. But hey, man. Were it not for that, you know, you gotta... It helps to take a long view approach of your life whenever possible, you know? And that probably works out negatively sometimes, but in this case it worked out positively. Because I was not tied down with a year-long lease in my hometown, you know, when Kate and I got a little bit more serious and she was like, hey, do you want to move to Vancouver? I was like, well, there's not a whole heck of a lot keeping me here, so I might as well. Then I moved to Vancouver, and, you know, to be honest, living in Vancouver is more expensive than living in my hometown, and that's bad, but it's also good because it gave me a little kick in the butt, and, you know, it kind of forced me to take on, you know, more responsibility if I wanted to live, you know, like a relatively successful life, I suppose. We'll just move on. I know we independently passed up on 3 Guppy items, but I really think if we took Guppy's collar earlier, we probably would have died. It was too much of an HP risk at the time. You know, you gotta look at life sometimes in the way that Marcus Aurelius looked at life, you know? His philosophy was, there's no, you know, if something is out of your control and misfortune befalls you, it is not unfortunate. Instead, there's good fortune in handling misfortune with virtue. Remember that. I butchered his quote. That's like a George W. Bush, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. Fool me 3 times, won't get fooled again. I think there's merit in that. You know, sometimes I can't control. How could you have possibly insulated yourself from the fact that you know, your friend is gonna... Is there a better term than knocked up? Your friend knocked up his girlfriend. Impregnated sounds bizarrely scientific. I'm not trying to put I'm not trying to cast aspersions on them. They're married and they have 2 kids now. It's like it all worked out as far as I know, but like I feel bad saying the phrase knocked up. It's like needlessly crass. But then impregnated is like, okay, doctor. The male subject impregnated the female subject. Fluid transfer was initiated. Blah, blah, blah. Conceived a human being? Oh, that's way too serious. You trying to give him a panic attack? Anyway, the point is, there's no way you could have... If you had spent your whole life preparing for unexpected consequences, you could not have prepared for that one. So what do? Do you go, oh, woe is me, this is terrible, blah, blah, blah? Or do you handle the situation as best as possible and, you know, accept some things are out of your control? Oh no, here he goes again. He's been listening to audiobooks. I'm just saying. It is true, though. I have been listening to audiobooks when I set up my acoustic foam panels last night. And there was a great lesson in there because I spent like 3 hours assembling these, you know, acoustic foam panels. And then they all fell down overnight. And Kate put them back up. You know, I could have been, oh, woe is me. I wasted all that time. Instead, I went, ha ha ha. That'll be a funny tweet. Plus, she's better at crafty stuff than I am. I'm handier than I've ever been, but I've still got a long way to go, you know? I'm lucky, like, sincerely lucky, that I have some verbal intelligence. Because, you know, like, my actual, like, craftsmanship is unbelievably bad. My literary craftsmanship is at least passable, which makes it truly stellar by YouTube standards. But my physical craftsmanship is, you know, we're talking like probably the average like 9th grader's level of handiness. You might be saying in 9th grade I was helping my dad build, you know, pontoon boats. Okay, I would probably say I wasn't talking about you. You know, that doesn't sound like the average 9th grader. Really, I've come to embrace... I mean, I've helped out a lot in the, you know, minor DIY projects we've done here. But, like, I've come to accept that my role is... like, our projects will be best served if my role is just... dumb muscle. Kate's like, hey, we need to move this, you know, like, heavy box upstairs. I'm like, I don't know. And then I tighten my belt and one stair at a time. If she's like, you need to put this needle into the, or you need to put this thread into the eye of the needle. I'm like, I'm afraid that's not possible, madam. We're gonna need to call a professional. Why not? I mean, this run is like, it's not that good. I think we can only stand to gain through consistent re-rolling. And I mean, I see right off the bat we have Brimstone and Mom's Knife immediately, and also had the whole map illuminated for us, so... it's probably like one of the best re-rolls we've ever had. But we do no longer have the ability to fly. We also have continuum tiers, which is actually hilarious because we have like infinite range. So they don't go forever, but they do go for like 3 passes or 4 passes. So really, like, most enemies will be dead in like a shot or 2. I think we earned this one. Honestly, we played a very non-northerny game, you know? We didn't take many middling deals with the devil. You know, we did take, like, Shade, but when we took Shade, we had more HP. We acknowledged the fact that our low HP was a burden, and, you know, abstained from some deals with the devil that could have been problematic if they hadn't paid out. Now, ironically, they almost certainly would have paid out now that we saw how many guppy items there were, but it is what it is. I'm happy with myself. We got the Spider Baby transformation. Does not happen very often. I believe it's like, you know, the Mulligan's rate of generating flies, but instead of flies, it's spiders. I mean, this is a cool synergy, dude. If you're asking me if I'm pleased, the answer is as punch. Whatever the heck that means. Hey, for now, thanks for watching. I hope you guys have enjoyed the episode. If you did, click the like button. It's a great deal. Of course, subscribe if you want to see more in the future. For now, thanks for watching. I will see you next time. See ya!